Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Friday, August 25th, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my $19 rundown best bet, you can find those at the premium picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Friday in Major League Baseball. First up, it's the New York Yankees taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. Gerrit Cole and Zach Eflin are your starters. Gerrit Cole in his career, about 109 innings of work against Tampa Bay, has a 3-7 record, and this season an ERA just below 5 in 17 innings against Tampa Bay at 4.76. I don't love this matchup for him on the road with the Yankees lineup behind him that has struggled mightily against right-handed pitchers this season and in the last month, facing Zach Eflin, who's been so good at Tropicana Field this season. In his 82 2/3 innings at home, he's got a 10-3 record with a 3.05 ERA. Very low opponent's batting average with good strikeout numbers and good control. I got to take the Rays in this one on the money line at Tropicana Field. Next up, we see the Houston Astros taking on the Detroit Tigers. Framber Valdez and Matt Manning are your starters. Before the no-hitter, Framber Valdez was struggling, and now after the no-hitter, he has not been in the best of form either. In the month of August, even with that no-hit performance, Framber has an ERA just below 5. In the month of July, an ERA above 7. So he's given up a lot of sharp contact. He's more known as a pitch-to-contact guy that keeps the ball on the ground, but he's given up 5 home runs his last 3 starts combined. The Astros are now 2-3 in his last 5 starts, and they're usually heavily favored in those games. So really not been profitable recently, and now you're on the road here, a big favorite against the Tigers. The Tigers hit lefties better than righties, and Matt Manning in his career has been better at Comerica Park than on the road. This season, those numbers are flipped a little bit, but Manning's still in good form. His last 2 starts, 11 1/3 innings of work, only 1 run allowed. He's not my favorite starting pitcher to back. I'd like to see those strikeout numbers rise a little bit, but the Astros don't have great numbers against righties in the last month or so. They're below league average in OPS and isolated power. To me, there's value with the home team here. I'm going to take the Detroit Tigers plus the 1.5 runs with a sprinkle on the money line as well. Next up, we go to the NL East as the Nationals take on the Marlins. No official starter listed for Washington right now, but I am seeing Yohan Adon listed on ESPN. We should see Braxton Garrett going for the Fish. Now, the Nationals, in the last month, their numbers against lefties not as strong as we've seen in different points this season, but still a very low strikeout rate for Washington against those lefties. It's been the big reason why they've been able to compete on the road this season. Washington is 11 games under 500 going into Thursday's games, but they're only 4 games under 500 on the road. And we know Washington usually pretty big underdogs when they're playing on the road, so they've been one of the more profitable road teams this season. I like that. We're getting a pretty good price here with Washington here, and Braxton Garrett in this season at Lone Depot Park, an ERA just below 5 at 4.98. He's one of those rare starting pitchers for the Marlins that actually pitches better on the road compared to a pitcher-friendly ballpark like Lone Depot. But Garrett coming off a quality start against the Dodgers on paper, but he gave up 2 home runs in that game. I do think the Nationals match up pretty well with Garrett overall, and Yohan Adon's not my favorite starting pitcher to back, that's for sure. The Nationals bullpen also not my favorite, but Miami's offense struggling right now, especially against right-handed pitchers. The Marlins are 23rd in baseball in OPS, right around 20th in isolated power in the last month against righties. So I'm going to take the really good price here with Washington Nationals, sprinkle a little bit on the money line, take the 1.5 runs as insurance as well. Next up, the Los Angeles Angels taking on the New York Mets. Kodai Senga for New York. Looks like Patrick Sandoval going for the Halos. I'm going to lean towards the New York Mets here on the money line. Senga's pitched really well at Citi Field this season. Overall at home, he's got a 2.63 ERA in 68 1/3 innings, 84 strikeouts, only 5 home runs given up, and a 5-2 record. He's in good form. His last start against the Cardinals on the road, 7 innings, 1 run, 5 strikeouts, only 2 base hits. The Angels had a pretty ugly series against the Cincinnati Reds. We know this lineup has been kind of inconsistent lately. The bullpen has struggled basically all season. I got to take the New York Mets here on the money line, but not my favorite game on the board. Next up, it's the Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the Boston Red Sox in Fenway Park. Lance Lynn for Los Angeles, no official starter for the Red Sox. Lance Lynn looks like a completely different pitcher as a member of the Dodgers. His first 4 starts with LA, 3 earned runs or fewer given up, all 4 victories for the Dodgers. He's pitching deeper into ball games. His control's been really good. The last 2 starts, no home runs given up, decent strikeout numbers. It's tough to go against him right now with the Dodgers offense the way it is and Lance Lynn in good form. I'm going to take the Dodgers here. This Red Sox bullpen, if it's a bullpen game for Boston, hasn't been the best in the last month. An ERA of 4.67. The expected numbers right around league average, a little bit below league average. And it looks like originally it looked like Cutter Crawford was getting a start for the Red Sox. He hasn't pitched very well at Fenway Park this season. even if he doesn't go in this game, I think the Dodgers bats will find some offense early on. Give me the Dodgers here on the money line. Next up, we see the Colorado Rockies taking on the Baltimore Orioles. I'm going to go with the Orioles here and lay the run line. It looks like Kyle Freeland gets the start for Colorado. He has struggled on the road this season, more so than his innings at Coors Field. On the road, he's 1-9 this year with a 5.4 ERA, 61 2/3 innings, giving up 13 home runs and 17 walks, which isn't great. But what's even more concerning for me, only 22 strikeouts in those 61 2/3 innings. The Orioles have hit lefties pretty well in the last month, better than righties, and I do think that the Orioles not only will be able to get to Kyle Freeland, but also this Rockies bullpen, which has struggled as of late. To me, this is a mismatch, and you're seeing a mismatch price. The Orioles are pretty big favorites here. So a game, I don't see a ton of value, but if I had to lean, I would take the Orioles and lay those 1.5 runs, maybe lay 2.5 runs as well. Next up, we see the St. Louis Cardinals taking on the Philadelphia Phillies. Miles Mikolas and Christopher Sanchez are your starters. I'm going to take the over in this game. It's not my favorite game on the board, but Miles Mikolas not in good form at all. His last 11 innings of work, he's given up 11 earned runs and 3 home runs to go with it, with 5 walks and only 8 strikeouts. The Phillies decent numbers against righties in the last month, right around league average, so I think they'll be able to get to Mikolas and his Cardinals bullpen. On the other side, Christopher Sanchez is in pretty good form. I mean, his overall this season, good numbers, 3.36 ERA, but the 4.39 FIP, a little concerning. The Cardinals hit lefties pretty well in the last month, so I think the Cardinals chip in a few runs. We get over this total here in Philadelphia, St. Louis. Next up, we see the Cubs and Pirates, and we're going to see Kyle Hendricks and Mitch Keller as the starters here. We talk a lot about how the Chicago Cubs have crushed righties in the last month, and rightfully so. I mean, this team is in the top 5 in OPS and ISO against righties during that span, but the Pittsburgh Pirates are also there, top 5 in isolated power with a 10.5% walk rate against righties in the last 30 days. Mitch Keller's had 2 bounce-back outings, his last 2 starts against the Twins and Reds. One of those starts was at PNC Park, where we find him here. The other one was on the road against the Twins, and he went 12 innings combined, only giving up 3 runs with 19 strikeouts and no home runs as well. Kyle Hendricks is pitching well for the Cubs this year, but the Cubs are 1-4 in his last 5 games, and I do think Chicago could be considered a little bit overvalued in a spot like this on the road. It's not an easy spot. I think Mitch Keller pitches pretty well in this game, and the Pirates bats back him up also. And the Pittsburgh Pirates bullpen has been pretty underrated in the last 30 days. Decent numbers, a 3.8 ERA and the 6th best SIERA in baseball. So give me the Pittsburgh Pirates here, plus the 1.5 runs with the lean to the money line as well. Next up, the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Toronto Blue Jays. Tanner Bybee and Chris Bassett are your starters. Not a game I'm rushing to the window for. It should be an entertaining game between 2 really good starting pitchers, but I'm going to lean towards the under here. Chris Bassett's pitched a lot better at Rogers Center than on the road this season, where he's got a sub-3 ERA at home this year, a very low opponent's batting average. He faces a pretty weak Guardians lineup that does a really good job of limiting strikeouts, but doesn't have a lot of pop in that lineup, and has struggled in the run-scoring department this season. On the other side, Tanner Bybee's pitching well for Cleveland. His first season, rookie season, 9-3 record, a 3.01 ERA. His last game wasn't his best against the Tigers, where he gave up 3 runs in 5 innings, but still had 6 strikeouts in that game. He's got good numbers overall this year. The Blue Jays have hit lefties a lot better than righties in the last month, so I think we see a low-scoring affair, probably a pretty close game as well. I'll lean towards the under. Next up, we see the Oakland A's taking on the Chicago White Sox. Zach Neal and Dylan Cease are your starters. For me, I like the under in the first 5 innings in this game. It's more so a fade of these offenses rather than loving these starting pitchers. I mean, Zach Neal's got an ERA above 8 so far this season in 12 innings of work, but I do think he's a little bit better than that current ERA. And this White Sox lineup has not been good against righties, not been good against lefties in the last month, and pretty much overall this season. I think Neal will be good enough here for the A's to keep this game close and low scoring. But Dylan Cease, even though he struggled his last game against the Rockies, and it's been a disappointing season overall for him, he has been a lot better at guaranteed rate field with a 3.79 ERA, 73 2/3 innings at home with 78 strikeouts as well. The A's have made some minor improvements against righties offensively, but not enough for me to think they're going to be able to get to Dylan Cease early in this game. Maybe in the late, the middle innings, the 6th, 7th inning, but I think early on we see a low-scoring affair. Give me the under in the first 5. Next up, we see the Texas Rangers taking on the Minnesota Twins. Dane Dunning and Sonny Gray are your starters in this one. It's a tough game here. It's a pretty interesting game, as Dane Dunning and Sonny Gray both struggled in their most recent games. Sonny Gray gave up 4 runs against the Pirates in a loss to Pittsburgh, and we saw Dunning give up 3 runs in 5 innings against the Brewers in that 6-1 Milwaukee win. I'm leaning towards the over here. Got 2 pretty good lineups against righties. Like I said, 2 starting pitchers not in the best of form. but I also think the Rangers do take this game because Sonny Gray, I lean towards the Rangers because Sonny Gray just hasn't been a very profitable pitcher since the beginning of the season. We've talked about it plenty of times, but the Twins were 5-1 in the month of April when Sonny Gray was on the mound, but since then, a big losing record, and they've been pretty big favorites in a lot of those games, so really has not been profitable as a starting pitcher this year. Just in terms of the money line, he's pitched well this season, I mean a 3.15 ERA, but the team is just not backing him up, and sometimes when he doesn't pitch deep into ball games, the bullpen blows the game, but I'll lean towards the Rangers here on the money line and the over in Minnesota. Next up, we see the San Diego Padres taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. Yu Darvish and Brandon Woodruff are your starters. I guess I'd lean towards the under more than anything else in this game, as neither of these teams are doing great against righties offensively in the last month, OPS-wise, isolated power-wise as well. Brandon Woodruff has been better at home in his career, and so far this season, small sample size, but a sub-2 ERA there. He's coming off not his best outing against the Rangers, but that was on the road. It was against a very good lineup in Texas, so I do think he'll bounce back here, and I think he has a much more favorable matchup as well as a really good bullpen behind him, as the Brewers' bullpen, a 3.75 ERA and a 3.75 SIERA in the last 30 days, so one of the better bullpens in baseball. San Diego's bullpen's made some improvements, a 3.8 ERA in the last month. Yu Darvish, it hasn't been great, and it's been a disappointing season for him and the team alike. But like I said, the Brewers not doing great against righties, more so against lefties offensively. They've done better, in the last month or so. So give me the under here in San Diego, Milwaukee. Next up, we see the Cincinnati Reds taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. We're going to see Brett Kennedy for Cincinnati, Brandon Pfaadt on the other side for Arizona. I like the Diamondbacks on the money line in this game. I do think there's some regression concerns for Brett Kennedy going forward. Pretty small sample size. He's pitching well with a 3 ERA and 12 innings of work, but the xFIP currently above 5. Not really missing a lot of bats, only 2 strikeouts his last game against the Blue Jays. The Diamondbacks already do a really good job at limiting strikeouts, so I like their matchup here offensively. I think Brandon Pfaadt's continuing to get better in his game. I mean, last start against the Padres, 7 innings, no earned runs, only 1 base hit. Sure, he's got that ERA pretty steep overall this season at 6.13 and an 0-6 record, but like I said, you got to look at the recent games, similar to a guy like Grayson Rodriguez, who at the beginning of the year really struggled, and his ERA still overall in 2023 is steep, but we know he is pitching a lot better. He's become basically a completely different pitcher in the second half of the year. Pfaadt has been one of the top pitching prospects for Arizona, so no surprise there. I think he pitches pretty well, and I think he's good enough for the Diamondbacks to win this game. The bullpen's been getting a little bit better in the last week or so. Give me Arizona here on the money line. Pretty steep price, so not a great game in terms of value, but I'll lean towards Arizona. Next up, it's the Kansas City Royals taking on the Seattle Mariners. Brady Singer and Bryce Miller are your starters. To me, when I look at the pitching matchups in this series, this is the game I think the Royals have the best chance of competing in. And for that reason, I'm going to take the Royals plus the 1.5 runs. I mean, Singer pitched well against this Mariners lineup. It's not easy facing the same lineup in a very short span of time. That would be my big concern with Singer. But 7 1/3 innings, 2 runs against Seattle with 8 strikeouts in that game. The Royals are 4-1 in his last 5 starts. And, he's been really profitable as of late for Kansas City because mostly, big underdogs in those games. Bryce Miller's pitched better at T-Mobile Park this season. He's in good form as well. But the Royals have done really well against righties in the last month. Low strikeout rate, good OPS and isolated power numbers. I think Kansas City competes here. Don't love this bullpen. Might be a sweat in the later innings in this game, but I'll take the plus 1.5 runs with the Kansas City Royals in this one. And the final game for Friday's card in Major League Baseball, it's a good one between the Atlanta Braves and the San Francisco Giants. Spencer Strider and Logan Webb are your projected starters for this one. Both of these starting pitchers faced the opposition in their last starts. Spencer Strider, one of his best starts of the season, really of his career. He's only pitched 2 years, but Strider 7 innings of no run, only 1 hit, 1 walk baseball with 10 strikeouts in that game. Makes it 14 innings now his last 2 games with no runs given up and 16 strikeouts for Strider. One of those starts on the road, one of those at Truist Park. Strider's been better overall this season away from Truist Park, where he's got a 3.31 ERA, 68 innings, 97 strikeouts. He's facing a Giants team that's not really hitting righties very well in the last month. They're dead last in baseball in team OPS. Not a very good isolated power number either. I think Strider pitches well in this game. Even though he has to face the same lineup twice, I still think he gives the Braves a quality start. Logan Webb on the other side struggled a little bit against the Braves in his last game. 6 innings, 4 runs, but he's pitching at Oracle Park here where he's got really good numbers, a 2.11 ERA in 85 1/3 innings at home. He does a really good job at Oracle Park of keeping the ball on the ground, which is important against a powerful lineup like Atlanta. Give me the under here in Atlanta, San Francisco. And that's it. Those are the games for Friday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comment section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.